Hey, Ragnar.
Hey, Christian, good to see you. Haven't
It's
seen
great.
you since 4 days.
Yeah, I know. But we're going to see each other a lot. We've got a lot of events are back. They're happening again.
Exactly,
So
yeah. It's getting a hot conference season, absolutely, yeah.
it
I guess
pretty much doesn't
today's
stop.
show, we've also seen last week when we've been at MVP Summit Redmond. We cannot talk a lot about the summit because most of the content is under NDA, but it was a great, exciting week at the Microsoft mothership in Redmond.
Did you get Ragnar, did you get the selfie next to the poster saying no photographs? Like that was the thing during the summit.
Yeah.
You know, in the front of every room that you're in, and it's again all NDA discussions, exciting things happening with Loop. I'm very excited to be talking about. I think we'll hear with the M365 conference in a little over a month in Orlando, Florida. We're going to hear a lot of publicly be shared what was shared with the MVPs. But one of the themes of the event was getting your photo taken with the no photos posters.
I love this kind of meta humor. That's absolutely amazing. And
well, let's start with the intro. Well, let's jump into it. I know we're excited to get started here. Yeah. So for all of you that are tuning in, welcome to the Guardians of M365 Governance, episode 3. We should have like an echo effect on that. Episode 3. The TekkiGurus series, it's a monthly webcast focused on the rapidly evolving and expanding Microsoft 365 governance story. Our goal is to share insights, best practices, and the latest information about new governance features and capabilities within Microsoft 365. This live stream is dedicated to everything governance within the M365 ecosystem. So if you have questions or comments or thoughts on what we should cover or guests we should have on the show, please comment. And at the end of this, we'll talk about the what's happening next month. April, we have April and May. We have to finalize the dates, but the guests are booked. But for this third episode, Ragnar and I welcome M365 MVP Christoph Twiehaus, where today we're discussing understanding the management implications of Loop. Welcome, Christoph.
Hey, so good to see you again. Hey, Christoph.
Seems to be we have just split up 3 hours ago.
Amazing, yeah. Before we start talking about Loop, and because you are here in Central Europe, the number one leading expert around Loop, please introduce yourself for everybody who doesn't know you, Mr. Redcap.
Do you mean anybody is out there who doesn't know me, to be honest? Okay, Christoph Twiehaus, also known as Mr. Redcap and Mr. Red Shoes, because I always wear red shoes and red caps. And I've been with Microsoft for around about 10 years. And as I left around about 10 years ago, I just built up a little consulting company. And since 3 years, Microsoft Loop is on my main focus. And on the other hand, we are just a couple of guys raising up M365 infrastructures, and I dig into all that stuff, which means adoption, change management, and the mixing between the infrastructure and the people. That's my word.
You're based in Germany, area around Münster, so if I'm always busy in trains.
Great. I didn't realize as well, as though for folks that don't know this, so all three of us, former Microsoft people that went out into industry, and I left to get back into SharePoint, the SharePoint world, and lots going on there as well. But it's great to have that perspective.
Have the same manager. So we were not part of the same teams, but at a certain time we had the same manager. Yeah,
it's definitely weird.
Yeah.
So what is going on with Loop? What do we know? What can we talk about? What are the kind of the latest things?
What are kind of the latest things that are not under NDA? Okay.
Yeah, because there's quite a few things that have been popping up on the roadmap site. So I know some folks don't follow that closely. I've got trusted resources. There's people like Christoph. There's Daryl Webster. There's others that are following and tweet out on a regular basis any changes that happen to the roadmap site. And so you can find that it's roadmap.microsoft.com, I believe.
Yeah. So let's to be honest. Last week at the MVP Summit, they came up with one of the most requested features. They're gonna roll out external sharing within Loop components, Loop pages, and at least Loop workspaces, and they are gonna kick that off within the next 6 to 8 weeks, as I suppose.
Yeah, that was a huge announcement. A lot of buzz around the MVP Summit last week about that, and instantly questions asked about governance. What is this going to do to the governance and administration of Loop and everything else? So your content now, I mean, that's for me one of the greatest limitations of Loop, which is a cool tool, but most of my collaboration has been with external people. Mm-hmm. And so and so it's within an enterprise today, within a tenant, and so to be able to collaborate on the outside and use this dynamic tool will be incredibly powerful. And yet
also
now,
so we shared it last week that there's now a possibility. Christoph, does it work only with Microsoft accounts, so with business accounts, or only with personal accounts at the moment? What are the limitations here with external invitations?
So surprise, surprise. If you have got an Outlook or an Hotmail.com account, which is a personal account, you can share Loop workspaces and all that stuff since more than 18 months with any other email. So now we are turning the pages and we come into that commercial part. And if we are in a commercial environment, like we have 3 are all in, you're just going to share that stuff as you like, share a file or a folder with any of the external guys you want to share with. Just type in the email, send it up, and the other guy will have access to. Mm-hmm. They told me they have got implemented all that stuff like multi-factor authentication, all that stuff. So that's one of my main questions, and I'm like Usain Bolt before the 100 meters finals. If I get touch on that, how is it implemented in reality? Because if you are able to share it with any of the emails, your governance guys will, I think you will turn crazy on that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in the first run, go ahead.
Yeah, let's go deeper here. So governance guys are going crazy with this external sharing. On the one hand, we have external sharing since many years in, I don't know, SharePoint servers. We already had it at a certain time. So what are, in your opinion, Christoph, the most important risks and issues and challenges when inviting externals into a Loop page or into Loop object or a Loop workspace?
To be honest, it's the sprawl of storage locations Loop actually uses. So just keep our minds. I'm going to share one slide with you just to make up our minds. Did it? Just a second.
Take your time.
I'll use this pause while you're doing that. Pull that up to raise again. I think I've said this on this stream before. A very controversial idea, but I think sprawl is a good thing because it indicates people are using the technology. I'd rather have to nurture, redirect, and clean up too much content than have people not using the tools, not using it. I think the bigger mistake that organizations make is being too restrictive, locking things down too tightly, and then people can't collaborate. Because what really happens when they're not collaborating is it means they're not collaborating on the official platform. They're going around it.
Yep, fully agree.
So
here we are. So where does Loop store its components? If I came from on a point of view on the components, as you know, you can dig in Teams chat, in Teams channels, in Outlook, in Whiteboard, in OneNote, and all that stuff. If you initiate one of Loop components within a Teams chat or within Outlook or whatever, it's going to be stored in the creator's OneDrive in separate folders. Like Word is storing the Loop
the loop components in a folder that is created like Word loop files, whiteboard is storage in that kind of whiteboard and all that stuff. If it comes to a loop component within a Teams channel, the loop component is stored within the SharePoint team site, the associated folder. And now, to be funny, if I create a Word file within my Teams channel and I create a loop component within that Word file, so Ragnar, guess where is that loop component be stored?
In the OneDrive.
Yeah. Just to be honest, I've got a file sitting within my SharePoint, and the loop component created within the file is stored in my OneDrive. So that doesn't make sense at all. To be honest, that doesn't make sense at all. So to be honest, so if I've got my loop component, it's going to be stored in several folders within my OneDrive. So just make up our minds. I'm leaving the company. How do I get that stuff transferred? And pa. So if it comes to the channel stuff, if I've got a standard channel, it is stored in the folder on the SharePoint side. Private channel, same. If it comes to a shared channel, it will be a subfolder named Shared Documents. It's crazy enough. So we've got around about 11 or 12 storage locations. And at the end, if I use the Loop app, it's going to SharePoint embedded. Third type of location. So from a point of getting that whole stuff administrated, get it governance, get it secured, get it labeled, it's at the moment. So if
the thing is, when it's stored in SharePoint embedded, it's going to use Azure File Storage Container, and there is no user interface, because the only user interface which is existing is you need to open your Visual Studio Code. You have to enable the plugin called SharePoint Embed. Then you have to connect to your tenant. Then you have to use a tool called Postman, import a special SharePoint Embed template and run a graph API call using this template, and then query the SharePoint Embed file storage. So it sounds a little bit complicated. I'm going to write a blog post for TekkiGurus about it, but this is a very unusual way of accessing SharePoint lists.
Yeah, so we are in a close to be honest, in a crucial conversation with the Loop product group. My point of view is if they need to store that stuff in the OneDrive, it should be one single point of folder where the Loop components fits in. Nevertheless, if it's created in Teams chat or in Outlook or in Word, I don't care. I'm wishing that stuff is sitting within one folder. If the Loop components is created within any environment within the SharePoint side, it should be stored in the SharePoint side in a second folder, which is called Loop components. So I've got 2 storage locations we can handle.
Yeah. Christoph, what is your idea, your conspiracy theory? Why does Microsoft has invented this idea of Azure File Storage containers and SharePoint Embed for Loop? Is it because this is now a big thing for SharePoint Premium and other future services? Why do you think? Why is it relevant technically for Loop, or commercially relevant for Loop?
Just turn the clock some years back. If they started with that kind of Loop components, there was no SharePoint Premium, there was no SharePoint Embedded, there was no SharePoint Syntax. Not any of that tools has been on the horizon. So they simply made up their mind, where can we store that stuff? Okay, should be OneDrive. 3 years later, in last November, they invented the possibility to move that stuff into SharePoint. So they took the SharePoint team site, and at the end, the Loop workspace or the Loop app, like Clipchamp, like all that stuff, just uses that kind of layer within SharePoint storage location. They call it SharePoint Embedded or Premium, whatever you're going to name it, within the next 24 months. It's just you've got a web end, which is the Loop app, and they just connected it to a simple kind of storage location within SharePoint.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't get the point with Clipchamp. What is the relationship between Clipchamp and Loop? I haven't really seen it yet.
Clipchamp also uses SharePoint Premium storage location.
Okay. But there is no, so if I would upload a video into Loop, I cannot use Clipchamp to edit it.
Yes, you got it.
I cannot.
You cannot.
Okay, because
Not yet. Yeah, it's got some steps to take. I've got another wrinkle. Besides creating content in the various locations, a common theme in the discussions last week, again, without getting into the detail of the discussions, but from a compliance and governance standpoint, was maintaining labels as part of a compliance effort. And so a lot of concern with generally with Microsoft with announcements. One of the first questions is, all right, if I'm in an organization where we have our labels in place, the sensitivity labels that directs a lot of our automation, a lot of the solutions that we're building on the Power Platform for content. If you and I, or the three of us, are collaborating on something, we're going from what is a sensitive project that we're all a member of, we're discussing content that's in that, we're creating a loop, generating from a space where we're working securely in teams.
Yeah.
What's being created does not automatically inherit that labeling. So you're creating things that then go outside of that compliance structure.
Yeah.
That's a very nice question. I'm not really deep here into the PureView integration, but maybe Christoph, you know a bit more about labeling and sensitivity and retention labels of PureView in Loop, because I don't know if there will be special labels or if they are just going to inherit an existing structure of the contacts, like Teams or SharePoint, where labels are already existing.
They are using the labels that are sitting within SharePoint.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's that kind of stuff they made up. And just coming back to that kind of, you will be able to share external with any of your Loop components and code. They are starting with that companies that have not implemented any kind of sensitivity label so far. Mm-hmm. And the companies, most of the enterprise companies that have implemented that kind of sensitivity labels, that will follow up because they will respect your attached labels on your Loop components within the sharing dialog. Like, okay, that is labeled as internal only. You will not be able to share it with an external email address. Mm-hmm. It will be rolled out late summer this year.
Because one of the things what usually, that's one of the most typical governance issue is actually that somebody is going to invite, 5 externals, and then people are not seeing that externals are invited. So there is no visual clue that there are externals. So no special, label. Oh, here we are collaborating with externals. So they just add more sensitive content, GDPR or PII, personal information content, and then they are not aware that there are externals existing. And this is a typical governance and compliance issue.
And to be honest,
in the past, it was always used with labels. So a really big label in red, external are in this project. Now we are working more with the labels from PureView, but this was one of the number one topics in governance and compliance, oversharing with externals. So
and on the other hand, one of my top biggest wishes is that we can use existing M365 groups just for that kind of requesting a Loop workspace and all that stuff. Just connect that both knots of the story, because today Loop is one end of a kind of an I can dig in any email into it. It's not looped or linked to any of my existing Teams or SharePoint sites or all that stuff, and that is really one of the big missing parts in my story around about Loop, and get that thing landed within a company, because you guys from the governance, from the security side, for sure raise up your hands and say, hey guys, it doesn't work at all for us.
Yeah. Have you looked already into PureView and see if you can really trace and detect and monitor and audit loop components? Is it possible using the audit log or communication compliance or e-discovery or any other modules from PureView?
They have started to build up the report that you can see where are loop components sitting and what are the kind of restrictions or no restriction, who has access rights and all that stuff. They have just started. And from my point of view, they have got a long way to go for that point of stuff.
Yeah. And if you use governance, if you use Copilot and Loop, then you have to use the new Copilot filters in, for example, in audit logs or in the communication center, because they can filter. Please show me only Copilot queries from Christoph Twiehaus, which talk about, I don't know, red caps or whatever, or selling blue caps. So that's something what you can read out from the Copilot filter, but there is no filter currently with Loop.
That is something that we don't yet fully understand, the impacts of that, of how Copilot will give us access. I mean, and we have talked about this. I'm sure, Christoph, you've had similar conversations that, the advances in search technology over the years, certainly within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, SharePoint, people's understanding as it gets better and better, the new features, and you go back to like the Delve launch, people complain that Delve was showing things that it shouldn't. It's like, no, it's showing all of the content that you don't have properly structured and protected. And Copilot is going to do that to, the exponentially. It's going to give access to anything that I have access to, that today, the permissions are not sufficiently strong. Therefore, I can see everything, and organizations need to go through and lock that down. So that again, I go back to why this concern, certainly last week in a lot of the conversations at the MVP Summit, where whatever the features were being discussed, where people were saying, how does this treat my governance and compliance, activities today? If I've gone through the permissions, cleaned that up, we're highly regulated, we're organized, we have our compliance policies, we're automating things. Now we introduce Loop was creating content in different places and not adhering to, all of those labels, all of that structure, and Copilot, which is then able to access all those things which have not been properly labeled. A lot of concerns around this.
Yep.
And
that's exactly the point. So here to visualize it, if I go into PureView, I can easily search here for record types, and there is no Loop record type. Yes, there would be Copilot. It's called Copilot Interaction. And if I also search for the workloads, there is no workload existing called Loop. So I need to work on the OneDrive SharePoint level, or I just search here for Copilot. So here, this is a way, and audit logs are the most important and most basic ones what we have in PureView, and nothing is there. So Christoph, what do you think here? Should we still recommend using Loop, or do you see customers where you say, listen, dear Mr. Customer, you've got so many sensitive data, you should rather wait until PureView offers this kind of integration and don't start too early? What's your balance between it?
The balance is just build up a group of Loop pilots or a pilot group, and just to dig into and build up your commercial use cases you should use with Loop, or you can use it. And just write down all the obstacles you are coming around, all that stumbling blocks and all that stuff. And on the other hand, just have an eye on that kind of security, governance, and code. And just if it comes to Copilot, on the one hand, we have the Copilot that is totally sitting within my team. If I just dig around the chat, it's the one Copilot. If we've got a Teams meeting and we are using the Copilot within the Teams meeting, it comes to a second Copilot we are using. And to be honest, if we are in the Loop workspace and we are using the Copilot functionality, it's a third Copilot coming up. So it makes really difficult that kind of adoption, that kind of mind-changing, where are my atomic units of productivity flying around within my tenant? Because copying of a Loop component is not copying, it's like referencing. It sits in the organelle storage location and you are referencing in that stuff. And if my account is shut down, the referencing links are not working anymore on the server. And that have to be tried out, have to be implemented. You have to make up your plan. And every company has different use cases to get rid of that kind of silly stuff in our minds.
Exactly. The difficult thing is currently really the SharePoint embed Azure File Storage container, because I think we all three, so I think Christoph and we have made a Loop webinar with Rancor, and that we could show that the Loop Canva and Loop components they are stored on the OneDrive level, and then we can offer governance around it, because this is the file extensions are clear, Loop and Canva. So that's very easy for us on the OneDrive level, but on the Azure File Storage level, it's very difficult to offer a third-party ISV governance tool, because we don't have this this access here, and Microsoft does not offer it as well. So Microsoft is currently investing heavily into SharePoint Advanced Data Governance, but SharePoint Advanced Data Governance, a special price tag, does not include access to the SharePoint embed Azure File Storage container. So Microsoft also doesn't provide first-party governance for Loop. So we are here in a nice gray space.
Yeah, it's a gray space. It's a kind of a dark room, to be honest.
Yeah.
We are not kidding. There's a post that we're going to have a kind of an admin portal to just get all that stuff done within that SharePoint and embedded environment. That's the one end of the story. But on the other end, just to be crystal clear, Loop is evolving in a highly speed. And if you dig into, you can implement or you can connect to GitHub. You can connect to Trello. You can connect to Jira. You can connect to Figma. You can connect to or whatever. And you will be able just to induct or enhance within third-party apps. And nobody has any clue what kind of information is getting rid of that, because you have got the active component in Trello. If you store there any document, you shouldn't store that. I haven't seen any so far any kind of an how they're going to handle that kind in terms of sensitivity labels, internal sharing, and all that stuff. Makes me a little bit nervous, to be honest.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's getting more and more interesting. So when I just look here into the template gallery, it is just amazing. I'm really blown away. I haven't counted the amount of templates, but I'm following Loop also since the early days, and this amount of template gallery is just great. So I did not expect when everything started that the templates are going to be so rich. But also then when the adoption is going to arise, and as we learned from Christian, broad is a good thing, it's going to be very, very juicy.
And as you know, you can build up your own templates. And if in one of your own templates is implemented any of the third-party apps, woohoo! Here we go. You're going to have some kind of sleepless nights or whatever you're going to do it.
Yeah.
They certainly. I mean, they led with. It's an innovation first. I mean, they built a great product. I know that there's competitive solutions that are out there that have been around a while. But this idea, I think, of going and building kind of a next gen OneNote type capability, but it's very dynamic within a group, within a pilot group. I mean, it's incredibly powerful to have this capability. Love that. The addition of external users, love that. But I think this is just another example of an unclear picture of the governance story for a new invention, coming out of Redmond, where it doesn't quite fit the way that enterprise organizations need it to work on the back end. or complete that story. It's just, so that's, I mean, I would say, I don't know about either of you, I would say that as powerful as cool as Loop is, I think it's one of the next big things in productivity and collaboration space. I have it on the shelf of not yet ready for prime time.
Yeah,
I have it in still a pilot mode.
Yeah. Let's talk a few more minutes about the future of integration, because I see that there's currently this task management space is so hot because project on the web merged into the new planner. And Christoph, tell us a bit more how Loop is going to when Loop gets into the bed with planner, how does it all fit together to do Loop and planner project on the web?
Yeah, to be honest, if you use any of that table-based Loop components, task list, voting table, progress tracker, whatever, these are, at the moment you're going to create them, they are connected to it's called a light-white planner. Mm-hmm. And this light-white planner is synchronizing with your to-do, and they're synchronizing here both ways of the story, but they are just sitting. It's a single column of stuff that is in here, and it is sticked to your user account. And I can put Christian, or I can put Ragnar with a kind of an access right on that stuff, but it's not connected to that kind of a new planner. It's simply sitting in a second stage of that kind, and I'm not very happy about that, because on the new planner and co, you are able just to create a personal plan, which is also stick to your user account, which can be moved to an M365 group. And though we have two sides of the story that are not connected at the end of the day.
At the Infinity Conference in Austria, we did like 3 years ago, Christoph, a session about when to use which task management tool. I think the session needs to be revisited and reoffered with Loop now. Yeah, it's going to be different slides.
We call it clash of task management tools, or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just building up another session on that stuff, because I'm a big fan of Loop because of that kind of, I'm getting rid of all that stuff in any of the apps I don't need to. It's just my atomic unit of productivity I need. It's my table, it's my abstract, it's my bulleted list, and I take it with me wherever I need it. I started in Teams, I'm moving over to OneNote, I throw it into an email and all that stuff, and I don't care about where is it stored, to be honest, and where is it edited, because it's always live in time and all that stuff. But that, on the other hand, is one of the biggest obstacles to get into the mind of your colleagues, that there is not one single point of truth in terms of, you see it here, I can dig it here into all that stuff, and that sometimes makes people really weird, because they're sitting in front of an email, they're building up the text, within is a Loop component, and something like Ghostbusters, anybody is digging into one of that single lines and is editing one of his tasks and go, oops, what's going on?
It's really a new way of working. So for me, when the father of Loop, if Clippy is the father of Copilot, then the father of Loop is Project Mocha in Outlook on the web. And I always had the idea that Project Mocha was a kind of new next level of my side. The good old SharePoint on-premise My Side were now renamed to Project Mocha, because this is your space where you always go to find your to-dos, unread mails, which are very important. You need to answer task lists. So always this is my space. But you need to train it for the end users, that they understand this kind of page or a workspace which covers your most relevant things. So the typical My Side approach. I think this is very, very helpful. I'm very into this kind of thinking, but it needs adoption and training.
And on the one hand, it needs adoption and training. On the other hand, which is almost as like that heavy, is they do need some kind of administrative tools, like Ragnar is leaving the company, and if I'm the admin and I'm going to shut down your account, there should be post-up any that kind of an adaptive card. Where do I have to move all the Loop components stored in Ragnar's OneDrive? Where should I move it to?
Yeah.
Just to
As
get
much,
the HR offboarding story is so ugly.
yeah. Well, as much as I don't want to advise Microsoft to create yet another admin center, there's enough difference, unique capabilities in Loop, I think, to justify that, so that you can go and get organized. I mean, there's a lot of cross-pollination across the admin centers. It's yet another place to go and look, but that's also an opportunity for the ISV partners out there to go and build into their solutions to pull that in together. But again, I think Microsoft needs to be looking at it with that mindset and solving the problems that are unique to, you know, what Loop provides, and going and answering those fundamental questions of where your content is, who has access, what happens when someone leaves an organization, what happens if there are, you know, like we have for files. We can put a life cycle management around a document, for example. Do we need to do the same for Loop?
That's exactly the question here from Eric, where he says, you know, when finding files, when searching it, is AI, call it Copilot or however you will call it, will AI be able to really compensate this kind of missing single point of truth? What's your thought about it?
No, I don't think that the AI will be able to just get all that stuff visible, or all that. It's like forms. If you leave your company, the Loop is the second time they missed the endpoint of a user story. If you leave a company, you have no idea how to transfer forms within your user account to another user account. Yeah, okay. You can dig it into a web formula, and the Microsoft guy is gonna move that forms formula from one account to the another. If you've got 150 forms within a user account, you dig into 150 times to fill out that formula. Thanks heaven. So on the other side, they haven't made up their minds how we can build up that administrative side, just to get the confidence of all the companies and administrators that are thinking from A to Z in the lifetime of that Loop stuff. I think they have started with A. And they just have moved onto K or L, and there are some missing steps to go.
Extremely interesting, because Christian and myself, we have a long history working for migration tool vendors, and usually a migration is done when moving from an old system to a new system, or merger and acquisition, carve-outs, tenant-to-tenant migrations. But we could also brainstorm, I think, if it would make sense to have a kind of migration tool for this kind of HR layoffs. When people are really leaving the company, that a tool would scan the whole user environment and say, listen, Joe Doe left the company. Now everything goes to Jane Doe, because this is actually a migration topic. And out of the box, there is no help. All the content would be lost.
You move it within any kind of an technical user storage location, any kind of that stuff. How? Yeah. In the end,
it's a migration.
If you shut down, if you don't move the Loop pages, and if you don't move the form files and all that stuff, and you shut down the account, you're gonna have fun, and you're gonna have a lot of tickets in your IT support area.
Exactly. And the migration tools are already doing this kind of job, but always from moving one tenant to the other tenant. Usually they are not built and designed to work with intra-tenant migrations.
Yeah, well, there are some capabilities within the applications, and there's something that's hitting. I think Jeff Teeper just tweeted out yesterday, or day before yesterday, things like in Microsoft Teams, the to be able to archive a channel. I mean, so there's, how long has Teams been out? And I'm pretty confident that within the first 30 days of Teams going live, people were saying, how do I archive stuff? How do I shut down? How do I clean this stuff up? And here we're just, almost have that feature to archive. But again, the issue is not, whether a third-party tool, and I think there are some that will do even within a tenant and move things around. It's more of a change management. It's moving more than migrating. But you have to know where all the parts are. I can move documents. I can move a chat history. I can move like those components that I'm aware of. But when it's generating, assets, digital assets in 5, 6, 7 locations, I'm pretty confident people are missing parts of that. And then what kind of risk does that leave an organization by having assets that aren't properly accounted for, managed, labeled, tracked, all those kinds of things?
Yep.
And what can I then find using Copilot and other AI tools?
It's just, Christian, to be honest, in the second you began to spoke of archiving a Teams channel, it made click in my head and, oh guys, what we gonna do, or what we are gonna doing if one of my Loop workspaces is a kind of project documentation or all that stuff, I'm not able to shut down or to archive a Loop workspace so far. Oops.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the biggest stumbling blocks I see within the next 2 or 24 months that should be solved by Microsoft.
And then sometimes customers say, listen, it's not enterprise ready because no archiving, no backup, no restore. So the typical ABC or the basics of enterprise applications is not provided yet.
To be honest, we have definitely crucial conversations with enterprise customers. They are thinking about just moving from Jira to Loop. They are thinking about to get rid of third-party software with horrid licensing costs just to get it done within the Microsoft licensing stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, they are moving into a kind of a software which is just learning to walk. We are not able to run. We are not able to perform a marathon within the Loop workspace, all that stuff here. We are missing certain parts to be enterprise ready, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, let's wrap up with a positive note. Christoph, do you have something to share to finish it?
I thought it's all been positive. What are you talking about? I mean, stuff that needs to be done. It's not like a depressing note, but.
What's your favorite template?
The project brief.
Project brief. Mm-hmm.
Because there are all the components within. I need just note taking and all that stuff. And to be honest, I'm one of the biggest fans of the collaborative meeting notes. And we are just in a close cooperation with one of our customers. And we are building up a template of collaborative meeting note which is enhanced with links to OneNote, with links to Planner and all that stuff. And we are trying to get that thing up and running.
Yeah. Oh, it's so nice. If somebody here wants to connect with Christoph, what I highly recommend, Christoph is easy to find on LinkedIn, and his company is called Skillcom. So Skillcom with a K.de. You will find everything, how to connect with him. And usually, Christoph, you are sharing most of your knowledge around Loop on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 or 3
on your
times a week.
profile, but also join the Loop LinkedIn groups. There is a global one, international one, and also the German-speaking one. So both you are contributing as a core member. Awesome.
So it is.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of nerdy details which are very relevant for security, compliance, and governance, and also to make Loop more enterprise ready. Great conversations. Thank you so much.
And to wrap things up too, and I mentioned at the beginning that we have April and May scheduled, so episodes 4 and 5 are guests. So in April, so we should have here within the next couple days, we should confirm the dates and be able to start publishing, which I know our chief editor Eric at TekkiGurus will love that we lock down the date and can promote further in advance. But we have fellow MVP Sue Hanley is going to be joining us in April, and then former MVP now at Microsoft and working in the Purview world is Erica Tully, who's going to be joining us down from her new home. One like a lot of Microsoft people that migrated down to Arizona. So excited to have the depth and breadth of knowledge from Sue and Erica over the next couple months. So next month we're going to be talking I'm sure information architecture will be at the forefront of that discussion, and then around Purview in May. So lots coming up. So please continue to follow along. Go register over at TekkiGurus.com. And again, all of the content on the site is free. Our registration gives you, you can sign up for any of the webinars and live streams and more premium content that's coming to TekkiGurus. So you definitely want to go and register.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Christoph, for being here.
Thanks for having
See you
me.
next time here at the Guardians of Governance.
See you later.
Have a nice night.
Bye.